Okay, hey, welcome back to the Sun Journal Editorials. It's Tuesday, July 28th, and we're going to be talking about downtown development. I got a special guest today. It's Jonathan Labonte. Does a lot of stuff, county commissioner, Androscoggin Land Trust, but most important, he writes a column for the paper, and he's been pretty outspoken about downtown development, what to do with the old mills that you see behind us, the Cowan Mill site that's behind us. And he and I are completely polar opposite opinions of this issue. So we thought we'd come up to West Pitch Park in Auburn, where we are right now, and we're going to have a quick back and forth about what should happen with the Cowan Mill site, Island Point, and interestingly, what happens, or what should happen with Mill number 5. And so first of all, we had an editorial in the paper last Friday that talked about a new perspective on the Cowan Mill site, trying to look past its bare walls to the city beyond. And then Jonathan had a column in the paper on Sunday that talked about it's not quite time to look past these mills just yet. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what the city should do with some of these old buildings downtown.
Well, I think there really is a unique opportunity given the landscape sitting behind us that was built by really the founders of this city. They spent a good 30 to 40 years to come up with a master plan, where to place the canals, how to maximize those, how to lay that into both the residential and commercial development. And really there's a playbook there that's been built, and the infrastructure around that playbook but before we go on and toss that playbook in the trash, maybe we ought to take one more hard look at it.
Now, we were talking a little bit earlier, and we both feel pretty much that Island Point's ripe for redevelopment now with the Cowan Mill gone. And the first priority for the city should be finding out what to do with that property. And if you look over my shoulder, Island Point, you can see the rubble of the Cowan Mill, and then a whole area there, that's Island Point. Now, one point other point we were discussing is how does this affect Mill number 5? And Mill number 5 is slated for demolition. Jonathan co-chaired a committee that eventually said it should be preserved and turned to a convention center. And now I'm of the opinion it should come down. But Jonathan thinks it should stay until Island Point gets redeveloped into something. Maybe you can explain that.
When the city of Lewiston was first laid out, they began building the canal. The upper canal is about 1,900 feet, running all the way down to the Androscoggin Mill. And the goal was, let's start building facilities one at a time. And I really think the ability to look at Island Point, start with Island Point, see what type of economic activity that generates, and that can set the stage for the next city block, which in essence is the Mill 5 site. And to see whether or not Mill 5's viability for some sort of either public facility or private facility changes before we sink $3.5 million paid for over a 15-20 year period just to remove the rubble from the site.
And that begs a good question, that is for Island Point's viability, and this is something that city officials are probably going to have to think about. So for Island Point and redeveloping it, is it better to have Mill number 5 standing across the street, or is it better to have Mill number 5 gone and have a clear site there for anybody that might want to come in and start off a process with Island Point? My opinion hasn't changed. I think the city's better off with Mill 5 gone. I think a clean slate's needed. I think trying to entice a developer to build something fantastic on Island Point isn't going to help to have a kind of an aging, decrepit old building across the street that takes away from the streetscape, the landscape, and probably the property value.
I may surprise Tony a bit when I say that there may be a scenario where I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Mill 5 torn down. My concern, of course, is that we don't have any urban visionaries here in Lewiston, Auburn right now. At least if they're here, they're not speaking very loudly. Great Falls Plaza, which is where we walked up through to get here to West Pitch Park, is a perfect example of what happens when you have given Lewiston, Auburn a clean slate. That area of Auburn, to me and to others I speak with in urban planning, looks more like a suburban business park. It doesn't have the feel of an urban area. You have wide open surface parking, disjointed bicycle and pedestrian access. It really isn't a place that says, hey, come and visit, and hey, this is Auburn. And what we have with the Mill District and with Mill 5 and what we had with parts of Island Point before the Levy Mill fire, the Levy Mill demolition, and now the Cowan Mill fire, was an urban landscape. You had buildings up along sidewalks, up along streets. There really wasn't a sea of parking because at the time they were built there wasn't parking. And certainly the Mill 5 site, if it's cleared, creates a great opportunity to rebuild an urban area. I'm concerned with the 1950s style parking policies of Lewiston and Auburn, what we'll end up with is, in essence, some supersized strip malls. And I'm not sure that's the type of attractive Lewiston Auburn that's going to get young professionals like myself and others to say, Lewiston Auburn's a place that I want to lay down some roots and make a go of it.
There's no easy answers to any of these questions. Jonathan and I have debated it more than once. And there's everyone's got an opinion on what you should do with Mill number 5, what you should do with downtown, do this, do that. But with the Cowan gone and Island Point now pretty much bare as far as developable buildings. I mean, you can make some arguments, some of the CMP stuff there can be turned into something else, but the jewels of that area were the Cowan and the Libby. Now it's just wide open. Anything can happen, and we can have some new discussions with some new information. And if the City Council in Lewiston and Auburn don't get on this and sort of have that visioning of what should happen, then somebody else is going to decide it for them. So, Jonathan Labonte, thank you for coming on. This is the Sun Journal Editorials. We will be back on Thursday this week. And if you want to find us, there's a bunch of places. sunjournal.com, facebook.com/sunjournal, twitter.com/sunjournal, youtube.com/sunjournal. And if you want to reach me, editorial board at sunjournal.com, or Jonathan, jlabonte08 @gmail.com. We'll see you later.